Time for a new row in the Sugaridoo Bernina quilt along. Today we're going to make part 8, row 8. Hi there and welcome to the very first video in my new temporary studio. We are moving and so is the studio. So until we've built a brand new studio for me in our backyard, I'm going to work from this space, a temporary studio in one of the bedrooms. I demanded the biggest bedroom for the studio. So this is where I'm working from for the next, I don't know, months and maybe half a year. So yeah, I just moved in. Not everything is yet ready yet, so there are still people working on the house. The painters are busy now, so if you hear something, that's probably the painters. But the studio space is mostly done, so I can film here. So this Bernina video for part 8, row 8, is the very first video filming here. And today we are making the row called Mowed Lawn. Because all of a sudden with our new house, I have a lawn and we have to mow it. When you search on Google Images on Mowed Lawn, you will probably get why I came up with that name for this row. Okay, enough talking. Let's get started sewing. Let's see what we need for this month's row. So we need our fabrics. I have my green sour apple, background fabric, accent fabric, rotary cutter, inch rulers, cutting mat, ironing board, iron, a very dirty one, so I still need to make a new cover for this, and of course my sewing machine. So that is what we need for this row. We will be doing some cutting and sewing and cutting and sewing. With this row you have two options. In this video I'm going to show you how to make the wonky version, but there's also a straight version, which I already made. And this is a straightforward row where you sew strips together and then cut them up and sew those blocks together. So basically you're making blocks with 3 strips in your main fabric and 2 strips in the background fabric between them, and making 11 of those blocks and then sewing them together with a 2-inch sashing. And the instructions to make this version is on the Bernina blog. And the different version, the wonky one that I will be making in this video, is with a little bit more wonky blocks. So also in this version you will be making 3 strips in your main fabric and 2 strips in the background fabric in between, but they will just be a bit wonky. Yeah, so you can choose what you want to do. If you want to do a little bit of improv and go for a wonky version, or go for the straight one. And for this, just read out the written instructions on the Bernina blog. I think both look really nice. So maybe with the previous row, the wobbly one, you went for a lot of improv, so then a wonky row in this case can be cool. But if you went for a perfect half circles, then maybe this row will match that better. Your choice. Both are great options, I think. So let's cut some fabric for our wonky row. I'm going to put my accent fabric aside for now. We're just going to make 10 of these blocks first, and then we know a little bit about what size accent fabric we want to use. So you can either go for 1 strip in accent fabric or 2. That's all up to you. I think in this one I'm going to make 2, and in my straighter row I went for 1 accent strip. So let's first cut our main fabric. And this fabric came in 13-inch wide in our kit, if you've ordered a kit. And I'm just going to cut it in half. So yeah, I'm just going to cut it in half like this, and then cut it up in blocks of 6-inch wide. So 13-inch, that is 6.5. Yep. And it doesn't need to be too exact, so This is going to be 6.5, but the blocks need to end up 5.5 inch. So this is your wiggle room that you have. So if you want more wiggle room and you're not working with a kit, you can just take a wider strip. There we go. And now we need 11 of these blocks in 6 inch. That's 4, 8, 12. Oh well, I will have some extra. That's fine. I always like to have extra because that means that I'm free to mess something up and that it doesn't, that it's not such a big of a problem. Okay, so now we have this ready. Let's cut some strips from our background fabric. So as you can see, I cut something out of here. That's no problem. What we do need is strips of 1 1/4 inch. No, 1 1/8 of an inch. That is for the straight blocks especially, because we wanted to have this 5.5 inch. So these two are measured, including seam allowance, 1 1/8 of an inch. I am going to cut the same for our wonky blocks. So this is also including seam allowance 1 1/8 of an inch. But since we will make this bigger and square it up, it's okay if it's not exactly 1 1/8 of an inch. That's the nice thing about improv, right? So I am going to cut those roughly 1 inch and 1/8 of an inch. So these strips are now shorter than my width of fabric, but I will just cut a bit more. So let's start with this, and I can always cut extra if I need. And then from the background we also need 10 strips of 5.5 inch by 2 for the sashing between the blocks, but I will cut that when I get to it. So now we can already start by making our first block. So this is the feeling that we want to go for. Wonky stripes. And they don't necessarily all have to be like this. They can be in the same direction or in that direction. And then when we sew them together, we will alternate the direction. So we will alternate between vertically and horizontally blocks. So yeah, this is what we're going for. So what you're going to do now is take your piece, and I have it, this is 6.5 inch and this is 6 inch approximately. So now I am just going to cut and cut. And the next step is to put our background strips in between. So I'm going to sew this here and then sew this in between over here and then square it up. So that is what we will be doing today. I guess for most of you these blocks will go pretty quick, but that will be okay since the last row we made was pretty time consuming, I think, with all the reverse applique. So this is just cutting it up, a little bit of freestyle improv, and then sew those pieces back together again. So here we go, first piece. I'll just use the long strip, I'm not going to cut it, but if you want to, you can place your strip on your fabric and then already cut it off. But I will just sew it first and then cut off what I don't need. There we go, first strip added. So now I have this long strip over here. I will fold it open and then trim it like this. Yeah, and then give it a press. first piece pressed, and now I just place it next to the other two and place this on top of it. So because we took this a little bit wider than 5.5 inch, it needs to be 5.5 inch including seam allowance, but since we took it a little bit bigger, we have some wiggle room over here. So you can see that these lines don't really line up, but that's perfectly fine. We are going to trim it so you have some wiggle room over there. So that piece is added, and then I can just take my strip again and attach another background strip. Time to add the final one. And that is the first wonky block done for today. So now you can square it up. And as you can see, it is roughly 6 by 6 inches. So now I need to square it up to 5.5 by 5.5. So here are the first 4 blocks, and I really like how they look even together like this, so it would also be a cool idea for a whole quilt. But yeah, those are 4 blocks done. I'm going to make 6 more like this and then show you how I'm going to incorporate the accent fabric. Now the 10 blocks in all green are done. I am going to make one with accent fabric. So I'm going to make 2 of the 3 pieces in the block accent. The 2 outer ones and the middle one is going to stay green. You can do it in 2 ways. You can cut 2 strips from your accent fabric, but you can also trim a whole square from your accent fabric. Like so. I have my 2 pieces stacked on top of each other. So I cut 2 lines, and then I'm going to remove my 2 outer green pieces, and then I'm going to remove my center accent piece. So now I have a perfectly fitting block over here, to which I can add my background strips. Yeah, so another method that you could do is you could say, I'm just going to cut a strip like this and then cut 2 strips that are roughly 6, let's see, they are roughly 6 by 2.5 inch. This one as well, so roughly 6 by 2.5 inch, and then you can match that. It will probably make sense when you just try it out. 2 ways to do it, both are fine. So now let's assemble the last block. Now squaring it up, and then it's already time to assemble a row. There we go. Final block done. Now time to assemble them, and for that I need to cut some extra strips. So these are 11 blocks, and we are starting the row with a block and ending the row with a block, so we need 10 strips of sashing of 2 inches by 5.5 inch. And I'm going to start with a block in vertical direction on the left side of the row, And then the 5th block from the left is going to be the accent block one. So I'm going to start with one upright. So I'll add my sashing like so. And then the next one is going to be added in the other direction. So there we have 4 blocks, and now I'm going to add my accent block. And after adding your accent block, just continue adding all the other blocks of the row. Final block. Let's give this a press. Da-da-da-da! There it is. It's done. I'm just going to hold it up next to the other row so you can see the difference. So here you have 2 rows, 2 versions of the same row. One a little bit wonky and one just nice and straight. Which one are you going to make? I can't wait to see how this is going to fit in your quilt. With these little improv tweaks that you can do to your quilt, you can really make it your own. But of course, following just the straight pattern and making everything very symmetrical is also perfectly fine. I also really like that style. So my 2 quilts are also going to be one with some improv and the other one without any improv. So yes, there we go. Our quilt row 8 for part 8 of the quilt along finished. So that's it for this video. I really hoped you liked the row, and I can't wait to see if you're going wonky or going with the straight row, and I really hope you enjoy making this one. So hope to see you again next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye!